Okay, this is a video that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I really just haven't found a great angle to take with it because of the polarizing nature of the Alesis Strike Pro kit. On one hand, you've got part of the community that really supports the kit and the development and future generations because of the robust size of the kit, the expansion options, the great sounds, and the overall acoustic-like drum kit feel. Now on the other side of the fence, you've got people that are very aware and or against Alesis's quality assurance practices. I've found that there's definitely merit to both arguments, and I wanted to go into my experiences with the kit and why I went from being very jaded initially and where I stand today on it. Starting with what I really love about this kit, first and foremost, it's got to be the size. It's massive. It's got 4 toms, 3 crash cymbals, a ride, a standalone hi-hat, a snare drum with a snare stand, and a bass drum that can easily fit a double bass pedal. That's huge. The idea of a kit that size with Roland, you'd be looking at easily $5,000, probably closer to $7,000, and you probably wouldn't get that much to begin with. Now, it's always a little hokey when you are expanding an electronic drum kit because you have to use little Y splitter cables to split the signal cable for an individual drum into multiple channels. And that's because typically you're going to get a signal cable that is kind of like a TRS cable that plugs into the drum, and that would send out 2 channels for maybe the center of the drum and the rim or something. But let's say you don't play the rim. You can just use the center drum channel for that main drum and then use a Y splitter to split it off and add another pad. So then you have 2 pads for one. It's phenomenal. And it's so much easier on this kit than with the Roland kits because the Rolands they require some sort of resistor or something, or at least the iterations that I've played with. It's definitely possible, but it costs more to either buy the splitters pre-made or to make yourself. And of course, you can always expand your cymbals pretty much to your heart's content as long as the module can handle it, which we will discuss. And then, of course, there's the feel, which is hugely important if you spend any decent amount of time on a kit, and these things feel like acoustic drums. The size of the drums are phenomenal for just giving that bigger than your home practice feel. The cymbals are chokeable, they're fully round. They do only have a primary strike zone in like the center front area of the cymbal, but that's not to say that that's the only place that you can hit them. That's just really the apex where you should be focusing your playing on. And because of all that, it really does come across as playing a real cymbal. They've got a similar swing to it, especially the ride. The ride swings because it's a bigger ride than you would get on most electronic kits. It's not to say that they actually feel to the stick like real cymbals. They still have a very rubbery feel to them. And then you'll especially get that when you're playing the hi-hat. But, you know, I mean, once you get over these couple little gotchas, it just feels really natural to perform on. The built-in sounds can be phenomenal. There are some kits and particular sounds on there that rival anything that I've heard in the sample industry. Now, there are also some funny collection of samples in there that just don't really seem to make sense, or they feel like that they're a sampled part of another drum kit from another source. There are also 1 or 2 samples in there. I don't know if they might have updated it by now and gotten rid of this, but there were a few samples in there that actually had some funny sounds like at the end of the sample. If you would hit the sample and then wait, you might actually hear like someone's voice talking in the far background, which is obviously unacceptable. That's something that you're just going to have to live with not using that particular sample. The sample list is vast. They have a ton of stuff on there, and that's because they provide a good amount of storage, which you know, is something that you find a little stingy on some other electronic drum kits. The drum module is, I mean, it's okay. It does the job. It's got a nice LCD, so it shows the drum set as its primary function, and you can go around and play on the kit, and it'll show what drum you're hitting, which is really nice if you want to expand. And so that's really handy in being able to visually see what is being mapped to where. Beyond that, it's got some great faders, which is more than you can say for some of the other kits, Roland. You know, where they've got the turn dials and you have to go into each one of the drums on the interface and change the volume with this one little squiggly dial. But the downside to that is that you can also nudge those faders without, you know, realizing it, and end up with a super bad mix really quick. It is so easy to do. I've done it time and time again when I'm getting behind my kit. So it's something to watch out for. And it doesn't have one of those pin-based cord systems that you have to screw in. It's just individual cables that are bundled together, and that's a big deal if one of those cables goes bad. And I've had that happen on one of my old Roland kits. So if you need to, hello dog, if you need to replace a cable, it's just a matter of either swapping it out. If you really want to go as far as to slicing open the bundle and replacing it, you can. But for me, I typically would just, you know, pop out another like TRS cable or something and just plug it in on both sides and you're good to go. The rack, I've heard some complaints about the rack and I don't understand why. I play hard and it holds up completely. It feels sturdy. It's got 4 legs. It's got expandability options. They send extra piping. I mean, that is phenomenal. If I wanted to change it up and have a tighter kit, they actually give you a smaller pipe set that you can use for that. I mean, there's nothing to complain about as far as I'm concerned. I do not understand why people have trouble with that thing. The hi-hat, now I'm not a great drummer by any stretch, so the idea of a very, very responsive hi-hat escapes me a little bit. I don't have the need for something that is so heavily intricate that it's going to catch 64th notes or something crazy like that. Now that said, I've had some problems with keeping it consistent. For my purposes in the home studio, 99% of the time, if I have a problem with it, I can stop what I'm doing and adjust it, or just get through what I'm playing, and it's never been detrimental. It's just a little annoying at worst. The inputs and outputs on the back of the unit are exactly what you would want to have on an electronic kit that you expect to be using in diverse situations. It's got MIDI in and out, USB, aux out. It's got, or aux out, aux in, separate headphone jack, all of your inputs obviously for the individual pads, and outputs for the primary pads as well, which is something that a good majority of the kits on the market do not have. Oh, one other thing I really dig about this kit is the ride cymbal. So it's got 3 zones. It's got the edge, it's got the main surface area or the body of the cymbal, and then it's got the bell. Just having those 3 alone really makes it feel like an acoustic cymbal, and it's something that you don't see on lower end drum sets. Yeah. And the last thing that I really wanted to point out that's a big deal for me is, and I keep talking about how you don't get these features on a lower end electronic drum set, and it's because of the price. I bought it fairly close to its release date. I think it was like 6 months in or something like that. I don't really recall actually. It's been a little while though. But point being, it was like $2,400 before some discounts. So at its most expensive, it's still half of what one of the touring level Roland kits would cost. getting all in on a kit this large with this many features at a price point, around 2,000 US dollars is something that I don't think any company's been able to do up until this point other than Alesis. And that's where things turn. Now, I'm not a drummer, as I mentioned. I'm not a born drummer. So I'm not playing this kit in live scenarios. I'm not playing this kit every single day. And there are definitely some things that people have had issues with on this kit. Some of them are legitimate. Some of them are suspecting possibly just how the person, performs with the kit. But either way, I wanted to shine a little bit of light on some of those issues. And this is going to be kind of a long list because I am part of a community that has talked through a lot of these issues and found solutions for some. For others, voiced their information and issues with Alesis, who then, works with the community to try to either fix them in the next iteration or at least find some kind of workaround for the community in the meantime. So starting off with some of the issues that I've had personally. The hi-hat I mentioned can be a little finicky at times, so I end up either wanting to really clamp it down or I want to raise it really high. Unlike with an acoustic kit where you can kind of find a nice middle ground, this one doesn't really ride that middle ground very well. And of course, I have the occasional missed stick hit, but those are so few and far between for my level of playing that that's just really never been a huge issue. Now, I really wanted to install a drop clutch on my hi-hat, and I bought a Gibraltar drop clutch without even considering that it wouldn't work. Just looking at it, it seems like, it's going to behave just like any other hi-hat. What I didn't take into account was that clutch makes the hi-hat spin. And that's a problem when you've got cables attached to it. I saw enough spinning that I stopped using it for fear that I was going to either split a wire or it would just get tangled up or something like that. So even though I've got the drop clutch just sitting there collecting dust, I don't use it, and I'm really bummed about that. Next up is the strike plates. So these have been known to snap inside the drum where the trigger sits underneath. It's this little plastic piece, and it's known to snap if you play the drum too hard or if it's just played for too long or something like that. It's just a weak plastic. And a lot of people in the community have had that kind of issue. They've shown pictures of it, and we can definitely tell it's a real issue with these drums, and even Alesis has recognized the issue to some extent. And I've never had that happen, but I didn't want it to happen. So as preventative maintenance, after talking with several people that's my dog. After talking with several people that have had that issue, it's best to just put some thick tape on each one of the plates in a sort of crisscross pattern. It doesn't hurt. Tape is pretty much free, so I just opened every one of the drums up, applied some thick tape across each one of the strike plates, and there you go. So far, I've had no issues with that, but I did want to bring it up as a possible problem. The bass drum, that is the one thing I dislike on this kit. I wholeheartedly think that thing is a piece of shit. And that is not necessarily because it's poorly constructed, I just think it's poorly designed. It's bouncy, so when you play, you get this feeling like you're on a trampoline constantly, and the rebound is almost a bit too much to control depending on how fast you're playing and what your playing style or playing habits are. It just feels a little hokey. It feels like and that's essentially what it is, it's a normal sized drum turned up on end with legs, along with the mesh pads. It just does not respond as a bass drum should. Now, I've had Roland kits in the past. They used a mesh front with a foam backing on it or some type of backing on it that really absorbed that hit, and you didn't feel like you were on the trampoline like this does. There wasn't that rebound, and that's something that I think that even Roland on their more expensive, like TD50K, I think is the version that has that now. They have the full bass drum, and it looks like a bass drum, but it's got a center pad that's clearly cut out. And I think it's a much better way to go, and I really wish they would have done that with this. And who knows, maybe that's something that can be modified easily. I haven't really looked into it, but as a general rule, I think this bass drum is... Oh yeah, and then there's the responsiveness of the bass drum. If you are riding that drum hard and fast, it seems to want to skip a few beats here and there. Now you can spend a lot of time and dial it into to where it's very, very minor and a rare occurrence, but it still does happen. Kind of similar, I guess, to the hi-hat. And there's just no way around to get around that issue completely. It's kind of one of those things where if you're going to have this kit, you kind of have to accept that as reality if your playing style is very fast and heavy on that drum. And lastly, probably the most annoying part of this kit for me has been the memory limitations, and man, they can really screw you. So you have a 200 megabyte maximum memory limit for an individual kit. What ends up happening is you can use all of the stock kits just fine, and you'll notice that the stock kits all max out the memory. They're all at like 199 megabytes. User kits, the ones that you create, you can create nearly the same kit as the stock kit, but you can actually exceed or hit right around the 200 megabyte limit pretty quickly if you're not careful about what particular sounds you choose. So that means that you have to sort of pick and choose what sounds that you want to sacrifice. And that's really detrimental if you are relying on the onboard sounds for performance purposes. Short and skinny is that you can't use all of your pads across the board with everything split and expect to fit into that little 200 megabyte window. You have to make sacrifices around the kit to be able to fit in the particular sounds that you're looking for. So you can't always fit what you want on a single patch. And that sucks. And to confirm that this wasn't just me using the system wrong or, you know, some kind of trick or something like that that I was just looking past, I contacted Alesis to talk through these types of issues, and the answer that I was given was that I needed to use the stock kits or make light modifications to the stock kits and save those as user kits. But apparently they felt like sacrificing that for price. Personally, I would have liked to have seen the that limit lifted, and I'd pay another $200 or whatever it cost, because you essentially severely limit the possibilities of this kit while giving, you know, some sort of minor price discount, if that was the reason that they did that. But it is what it is. You just got to limit the amount of sounds that you have on an individual kit. Okay, so I don't have any more complaints about this kit, but other people do, and unfortunately I cannot memorize all that stuff because there were quite a few. So I'm going to go ahead and just blaze through this list real quick, and I appreciate everyone, by the way, that contributed. I'll give you a shout out here on the screen of the source where I got all this information. But let's get into it. So first and foremost, hi-hat issues. Everyone knows that there's misses, open-close issues. Some people have actually had the edge stop working. And, you know, again, the clutch issue can be annoying with certain people. Okay, next up we've got the piezo trigger under the plate, the strike plate. That wire can break, and a lot of people have actually had that. They've had to send in a drum, or I should say they have had to tell Alesis about this, and Alesis has been pretty good about replacing altogether. So this is an interesting one. Some people are having an issue with the columns, or these little foam pieces that surround the strike plate under the drum head. Those can actually fall if the tension gets wonky or something like that on the drum head. They're kind of funny how they're made. They're just these little foam discs that are stacked on each other, and it seems like that there should be a much more eloquent way to do this, but it is what it is. It should just be a matter of gluing. As a precaution, I went ahead and pre-glued every single one with a flexible type of glue, so I don't think I'll ever have that problem. But, you know, a little bit of preventative maintenance can go a long way with stuff like that. The cymbals, some people have reported that when they got the kit, some of the cymbals did not work properly. I haven't had the issue, but I guess they had to contact Alesis and get replacements, and some people have had to go third party if they were past their warranty. A common complaint I've seen also is that it takes a long time to set up this kit if you really want it to respond well to the way that you play. When you sit down to a roll-in kit, typically it will respond, it will behave for you. And this kit seems to take a little bit of finessing to get it to perform, you know, generally well functioning. And this has gotten better with software releases. The later versions of the firmware have really kind of resolved a lot of those types of issues, but it still does persist to some extent. This is a small one, but it can be annoying if you're not a techie like me. The module can be difficult to update. I think you have to go put the software on the SD card, take it over, put it on the into the module, and then run through some kind of process to get it to update. I don't know. It's not the end of the world, but it can be annoying at times, even for me, on the few updates they've had. Now this one's a pretty big faux pas that I think Alesis really missed the mark on. I think they tried to rush this kit out the door and or keep it at such a low price point that they didn't want to put bells and whistles into the module. But it doesn't really have any training software built in, and it doesn't have much more than a metronome in the way of tools that you can use for playing solo. I've seen those types of warm-up routines and tools on the low-end roll-in kits, and that just does not exist on this kit. Changing volumes of anything that's not on the sliders is a pain in the absolute pain. Actually changing anything is kind of a pain on this kit because it's not touchscreen, and you spend a lot of time just fumbling around the menu trying to figure out this sort of non-intuitive method of navigation. It's once you get things dialed in, you don't have to go in there that often, but it is annoying enough that it kind of makes you not want to go in there to make modifications. A sort of minor but annoying feature that myself and some other people have complained about is the fact that on boot, the module boots up to the very first kit. And that could be a serious problem if, let's say, you're in a live situation and the module crashes or you accidentally pull the power or something crazy like that and you need to reboot the module. It starts back up really quick, but it doesn't go back to where you left off. It starts on the first kit, so that means that you have to start it up and then dial it to the kit that you want to be on and then wait for that kit to fully load. After you figure everything is said and done there, you've got 10 seconds or so where you've got no sound, and that could be cut in half easily just by the module jumping right back to the last spot that you were. Don't know why. I thought that they were really going to update this in the 1.4 update, but they haven't. And along those lines, there's been some complaints that the patches take a long time to load, which can, obviously, you can load the initial patch with no processing pretty quickly and play, but you don't really get the sound of the kit until everything comes in. So we got a couple more things to mention quickly. There are apparently a few corrupted kick drums, and they just simply don't work properly. It's been reported, and Alesis has at the very least acknowledged it, but they don't plan on doing anything about it, so that's awesome. Headphone volume is something that a lot of people complain about with this module regularly. It is a little quiet. I've definitely noticed that I can't really crank it and blow my eardrums, for better or worse. I've always been of the mindset that you spend $2,000 on a drum set and you've got a low volume on your headphones. go spend $20 and buy a headphone amp. Problem solved. But, you know, that's I guess one of those situations where people feel like if they spent $2,000 on a drum set, they shouldn't have to buy the headphone amp, which there is some merit to that argument. But some users have actually had to call Alesis to let them know that they get almost no volume or no volume at all, only to find out that I guess there's some kind of capacitor or something that blows in the module for a small subset of these kits, and they have to get the module replaced. And there are a few other gripes that I will not get into because they are more gripes and personal preferences than factual issues or issues that have at least been, you know, in some way proven to be more than just a single user's opinion. So, where that leaves us is that a year ago, I would not have recommended this kit because I was still working out the bugs, still unsure if long-term this was going to be a kit that would stick with me. Today, I suggest that if you're playing live, look at Roland. If you are trying to build a studio or a home studio and you need a kit for that, or if you want something to practice on with a lot of options and expandability, this kit, in my opinion, is perfect for that, and any shortcomings can be worked around or dealt with. Now, there's a few ways that you can take videos like this. I could spend a bunch of time putting together information on the usage and functions and features, but I really wanted for this video to focus on where this kit sits in the market right now and address the issues and some of the quirks that a lot of people have had in the music scene with this kit compared to my own personal experience after owning it for about a year and a half. So that sounds like a good place to wrap this up. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I'd love to chat about this stuff. I'm a total gear geek, and I could just talk about it all day. I probably actually do, and annoy a lot of people. Anyway, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you soon.